Somewhere in your house or in your memory, there is a version of Croatian that doesn't exist anymore. It's the Croatian your grandparents spoke when they left. The words they packed without knowing they were packing them. The phrases that travel with them to Australia, to Canada, Germany, United States, and stayed exactly as they were, frozen at the moment of departure. While Croatian kept moving and changing and absorbing new words and dropping old ones, their Croatian didn't. It stayed behind in 1965 or 72 or 91. And that's not a mistake. That is history. Linguists call this heritage language. And one of the most fascinating features is something called fossilization. The way a language stops developing at a point when a speaker stops being immersed in it. So your grandparents did not forget Croatian. They preserved it, like a photograph taken on the day they left. Which means the Croatian you grew up hearing at home may be genuinely different from the Croatian spoken in Zagreb or in Split, for example, today. Different vocabulary, different expressions, sometimes different pronunciation. Words that younger Croatians would find old-fashioned or regional or even unfamiliar. This is not wrong Croatian. This is Croatian from a specific moment in time, carried across an ocean and kept alive in kitchens and churches and community halls for decades. Your grandmother might say a word that a 20-year-old in Zagreb has never heard. She might use an expression that disappeared from everyday speech 40 years ago. She might pronounce something in a way that makes her as being from a specific village in Dalmatia or Slavonia or Zagorje, a village she left before you were born. And when you speak Croatian, or when you try to speak Croatian, you carry some of that with you too. You learn the language not from textbooks, but from people. But from specific people in specific places at specific moment. And that leaves a mark. Now, there's something else that happens in heritage language communities. When you don't have a word in Croatian because the concept didn't exist when your grandparents left, or because you simply never learned it, you borrow from English. You adapt it, you make it Croatian. Croatian speakers in Australia does talk about vokati and tokati, walk and talk, right? But they also talk about things that Croatians in Croatia have completely different words for. Because Australian version comes first. And then Croatian speakers in the United States have their own vocabulary that exists nowhere else. Words that are neither fully Croatian, not fully English, but something in between. And this isn't corruption of language. This is what languages do when they travel. This is what languages have always done. So if you've ever felt embarrassed because your Croatian sounds different, because your grandmother's phrases sound old-fashioned, or because you mix languages, or because you don't know the modern word for something, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not speaking broken Croatian. You're speaking a version of Croatian that survived, that crossed oceans, that was kept alive in places where nobody spoke it except your family, your community, and your people. And that is an extraordinary thing. That is not something to be ashamed of. The standard Croatian you learn in a course, the one spoken on Croatian television, written in Croatian newspapers, taught in Croatian schools, that is one version of the language. A living, evolving version that changes every decade. But the Croatian your grandparents brought with them is also a version of the language. Older, slower, more regional, sometimes mixed, but real. And it's yours. Learning standard Croatian does not mean erasing what you already have. It means adding to it. It means being able to move between the language of your family and the language of the country. It means being able to understand not just what Croatians say today, but what your grandparents were really saying all along. The language your grandparents took with them is still there in you, waiting to be completed. Vidimo se sljedeći tjedan.